Hello everybody, and welcome to another tutorial. This is going to focus on retexturing a Quixel asset. I have a couple of examples of what I ended up with when it came to retexturing one of these assets. So I've started off with this modular interior wall, and this is the default textures that texture set that come with this asset. And what I ended up doing is I've worked out a couple of ways to retexture this asset. One on the left is a little cheaper because the wood section of it only uses a repetitive a texture that is basically, this I'm using this poplar veneer um, base and roughness, and you can use that across multiple of the Quixel assets. So when it comes to this modular interior asset, it has a lot of other ones connected to it. There's like the trim around the ceiling, there's the ceiling pieces, there's kind of column pieces, and if you go with this route, they're all going to have their own texture set. But if you go with this route, the only thing that they're gonna have different is their normal and that blend map that I have here, like where you see like the edges are being highlighted. Or you can take a different approach where, just like with this one, you have a complete set of textures but are completely different than what this is. And also another thing reason that I've chosen this asset is that it has two different surfaces. It has the wood part of it, and then the wallpaper. And we'll take a look at Blender how I went about separating these. So now I can apply different wallpapers. Maybe different parts of the house have different wallpapers, or things of that nature. So let's take a look at how I ended up doing that. So I'm gonna quit out of and start fresh with Blender and go through the entire process with you. So first of all, I'm gonna switch to UV editing for my layout. Let's remove the cube, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna import FBX, and let's go to hopefully I still have it somewhere around here opened. Let's see, where is this modular wall? So it's right here. I'm going to be importing LOD0. One thing that you're going to need to do, I'm not going to show it in this video because it's quite available everywhere on the internet, is redoing the LODs, because I'm going to import this again at LOD0, so it's not going to have anything else to go with. Okay, well, first of all, I want to separate this particular asset. I want to separate it into a wood material and a wallpaper section, a wallpaper material, wallpaper. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to go into edit mode, and in my UV window here, I'm going to click this little UV sync selection. That way I can select the areas where my wallpaper is and assign it to a different material. So I'm going to switch to that, make sure that I have nothing selected. Control space to go into full screen, and let's select faces. I'm gonna hit B to be able to at least grab as much as I can with this. Unfortunately, these are not straight. It's a scan, so you can't really ask for much for that. But I can get the bulk of it through this selection. Alright, so now I can just press C for circular selection, and let's zoom in a little more. Just use your mouse wheel to increase the size of that circle. I'm going to try and get all these edges best I can. Hopefully I'm grabbing everything. This edge is kind of getting a little out of control here. Hopefully I didn't go too much overboard. This one came out great. let's grab everything that we need to have in here. Alright, so we have this corner all select, or this side all selected. Let's get this one as well. I went a little too far, so just whenever you want to deselect is middle mouse. And also to move the UV window around is also middle mouse. So you have to right click out of the circular selection and then middle mouse to move it around. And then C again. And right click, middle mouse button to move it around, and C to go into circular selection. Perfect. Alright, so now that we have this, we can assign a wallpaper to this, Control I to invert selection, and assign the wood. So now if we look at it, we have the wood, deselect, and we have the wallpaper. Now if you look at the mesh itself, it's a scan, so some of these are not going to be perfect, and once you have them in the engine, the normal is going to drive kind of fixing these weird looking faces, or like the shading here. So what I'm going to do for this, I'm going to go ahead and with this with the wallpaper section selected, first of all I'm going to go Control F, and I'm going to shade flat, so that way everything is flat in here. And you'll notice that there's some areas, you might not notice this in the engine, but I want to fix it before I get there. There's going to be some areas where things are kind of protruding out, so I'm going to go ahead and also scale on the y-axis to 0. So there you go, we have everything is flat right now. So the model is ready. I'm going to go ahead and export this as an FBX. And let's see, where do we want to export this? I want to export it to I'm going to create a separate folder here. And I'm going to copy the path. And I'm going to call this modular score wall interior, and call it V2, just so that I don't overlap with the ones that I already have done as testing. Okay, export FBX. So we have the model. Let's go ahead and I'm going to import it into the engine. So in here, my 3D assets, I'm going to go and create a new folder. And actually, I really don't need to do that just yet, because first of all, let's go to Mixer. I think that might be the better path with this, because I'm going to show the version of retexturing where you just have again another set of textures, but completely different than what this model came with. So right in I have a little project folder, Quixel Retexture, new mix. Let's call this modular wall. Okay. And just like before, I'm going to use a custom model, and the custom model is going to be right in here, and I'm going to look for LOD0, the one that I've previously imported. And there we have it. What I'm going to do next is going to be setting up the texture set. So I'm going to import the normal, and that's actually all that I'm going to need. There we go. So that looks great. Excellent. So I'm not too concerned about what's here in the middle, because I'm going to be using the what comes out of this on my second model. And so let's go ahead and look at the local library, and in my smart materials I'm going to be looking for a wood called antique wood and apply this. There we go. So it already looks different than what the original one that came with the model was, and it looks pretty decent. I mean, you can always go into layers and just like I showed before, adjust some of the edge wear. For example, this one could have quite a bit of impact. So let's take a look at this, and we have the curvature, and I think I'm going to reduce the tightness and maybe play around with the levels a little bit just to apply a little bit more wear. And I think that should be good for now. That's pretty interesting. And so I'm quite happy with how that looks. Let's go ahead and what I'm going to do next is export this one and export it to my library. This is the easiest way in my mind to get it into the engine. So and also have it in Bridge for future use. So this is going to be a 3D asset, and it's going to be interior. I'm going to select 2048 and export to library. Yes, I'm going to be replacing that one asset. Alright, perfect. Let's take a look at Blender. I mean at the Bridge. And there we have it. So this is our asset. And let's go into 3D view real quick just to see how it looks. Looks pretty decent. I'm guessing the bottom set of textures could have a little bit less tiling, and I think in this case is this wood base. And if we look at placement and increase the scale just to reduce that, and maybe also do a tilt at 0 just to more properly align the grain of wood. Alright, that looks great. I'm going to re-export this real quick. And I'm hoping this is not going to create a third asset, which I guess it does. It's not very well working that well. So there you go. I think that looks quite a bit better than the other one. There's the tiling is not as noticeable as before. Let's go ahead and export this to the engine. Alright, so it's being imported. I'm going to quickly delete these two items. And let's take a quick look at the new one that got brought in. Now this one got brought in with the same setup that original one had. But again, we're not interested in the model, we're interested in the textures. So I'm going to go ahead, and now I can go ahead and export this this particular model, which has the new setup with two materials. So I'm going to export XBX, and right in here, let's make this a little bit bigger, just like that, and let's import it. So import, there's two materials just like we wanted, and let's apply them. So here's our asset. We have wood, we have wallpaper. I'm going to apply the wood. There we go, that looks pretty good. And let's also get the wallpaper. So I've already downloaded a surface for wallpaper, and it's actually this old fabric wallpaper design, kind of red. I do like red. And let's apply that to here. Now you'll notice something that I've missed is we need to adjust the UVs for this, and that's the nice thing about this. You can you have separate control over how this looks. Let's go back into Blender, and right here we're gonna go into front view, orthographic, and I'm gonna hit U and then project from view. And there we go. We have these two UV islands. I'm going to scale them up just a little bit. And now we can re-export this asset with the new UVs. So export and export FBX. Go back into the engine. and re-import it. And there you go. We have a much nicer setup for our wallpaper on these two faces. Let's bring that actual model into this and compare the two. So there we go. This actually looks pretty good. I'm quite happy with how the texture looks, and compared to this, right? It's quite a bit of difference, you know, and you can change these, you know, like even you know, completely do something different. Like for example, in my case, I was playing around with some of the spar materials, and actually made something like this. Let's see how this looks. This painted wood white, and so it made quite a drastic change, I think, from what it was before, and so that always helps. But let's so this is one way of doing it. Let's actually uh, think about this, because this one is also, if you're kind of worried about texture memory, and so this has another set of, you know, roughness, or base color, normal, and roughness. So we want to be a little bit more mindful about this, and also if we have have the ability to use the same texture across multiple other assets, you know, same colors and all. So that's where, going back into Mixer, what I'm going to do is, using this antique wood, because it already applies a really good looking kind of wear and tear around the edges, I'm going to go ahead and open this and add a solid layer and drop it right above. Actually, let's put it below here, our wood base. I'm going to hide that. And now the solid, let's turn that all the way to white. So I'm going to create actually kind of a mask. So as you can see, we have all the mask that is going to show one of our textures, and then the darker side, which is going to show kind of the wear, you know. So that doesn't even have to be a texture. You can just have it as a tint. And so basically, once this is done, the only two textures that are going to be unique to this model is going to be the normal and the blend map. And the blend map could be, you know, 512 kilobytes. You know, it doesn't have to be one of those like a 4K or anything like that. So you can, you know, manage your texture memory a little bit better that way. Okay, well, let's take a look and adjust some of the other values in here. So I'm going to go to edgeware and bring these down to be black, so that way we have the contrast. And let's see, is the cavity sand? Cavity sand could also, I'm thinking maybe I'll keep it a little bit, probably not all the way to black. Let's see, it might look a little bit better like that. If I turn off the roughness, displacement, normals, occlusion, I think that actually looks quite a bit, quite well. So it's not everything, it's not all full black, you know. So it's kind of, it's going to give a little bit of a transition between the surface, the wood, and then whatever wear you're going to use for this. So this is, I'm pretty happy with how this map looks like. I'm going to go ahead and export this, and for this export, I'm going to export as custom, and I'm only going to export the albedo. I don't care about the other maps. And I'm going to go ahead and export the disk. Let's take a look at that that map that just got generated. Let's see, where did that end up? Hopefully I can find it. Alright, so here it is. So as you can see, we have you know, we have a lot of wear that hopefully we'll be able to create our custom shader and use with. Perfect. Let's import it into the engine. So we have it right here. I'll bring that in real quick. There we go. Okay. Let's create our custom shader. So I'm going to right click and new material. I'm going to call this M, maybe let's call it edge wear material. That should work. Okay, so this material is going to be pretty simple. I'm not going to get too far into it, but basically what we're going to have is two sets of textures. So we're going to have, I'm going to hold down T and click and convert this to a parameter, and this is going to be our base color. I'm going to duplicate that, and I'm going to be calling this our wear color. So the wear section of this. So we have the wear color. Now I'm going to duplicate the base color to name this base normal. And again duplicate it and call it wear normal. Not wet, but wear normal. And I'm also gonna, let's select these and actually make sure that this is a normal and this one's also a normal. Perfect. Okay, and then we need the roughness also as well, and this is going to be, let's kind of arrange them a little bit better. And base roughness, let's see, where is it? Base roughness, there. Okay, I'm going to duplicate that. And base, this is going to be wear roughness. Excellent. Okay, so how do we blend between these? We're going to need another texture sample and also convert the parameter, and this is going to be the blend map. So basically this is what's going to hold this one here. So let's rename this real quick, modular wall blend, or I guess you could also call it a mask, right? So it's entirely up to you. And right off the bat I'm going to apply it here just so that there's something in these textures, so when we connect them it's not going to give any errors. So I'm going to go with that, then roughness, and also just a base normal. For these normals, what we're going to use is the acid normal. And then the wear, I'm going to also keep the same for this one with the wear. And we'll play around with some tint values. Just and that's the roughness of this, and then the normal. There we go. So now when we connect these nodes, we're not going to run into any errors. Now let's add a little bit of control to this blend map. One thing that I want to do first is I want to give the option to invert it. So you can do a 1 minus, and then I'm going to do a static switch parameter so that we can specify invert blend map. So if it's true, then the 1 minus goes in here. If it isn't, then just false. Alright, so right off of this, I'm going to run a multiply node and then a power node to give us some better control over how much wear that specific asset has. And holding down S to add some scalars, we're going to have blend multi, set that to 1, and connect that into the multiply, duplicate that, and blend power, and power, and put it into power. Now how do we blend between these? Well, we're going to use a linear interpolate just like that, and our blend map is going to act as our alpha, and then we're going to have our base color in A and our wear color in B. Alright, for the wear color I'm going to also add a multiply and add a tint. So hold down V and then tint, so that way we can control that as well and put that into B. Alright, let's duplicate, Control W, and duplicate these lerp nodes. We need a couple of them, a couple more, and again this goes into alpha, and now we have the base roughness. And to give this some control, I'm going to go with a multiply and a scalar value, so base rough multi, and set it to a default of 1. Plug that in the multiplier and that in there, and do the same for our wear roughness, just like that, and plug it into B. And then for our normal, let's go ahead and trying to like kind of align these a little bit better. We have A and we have B. Of course, this can also be just one node, but this gives you a little bit of flexibility depending on the asset you have. I have the lerp into base, then roughness, and normal. And let's see, that should do it. Let's take a look at that. Save this, and you can already see it on the material preview how this gets applied. Let's jump into our engine. I'm going to duplicate this asset here, just to look at it that way. And let's create a material instance from our edgeware material. So we have it right here. Create material instance, and I'm going to call this mi underscore modular wall edgeware. Excellent. Alright, well, let's feed in some of the values. So we're happy with the base color, the base normal, or actually the base color, base roughness, the blend map as well, the wear color, and the wear roughness. So we're going to add our original normal to this. So we have that there and here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and apply this material to it. And as you can see, it's a little bit exaggerated at the moment. We can go ahead and tweak some of the values in our material here just to give it some better look. So the tint is, is dark, and now the tint is applied maybe to the surface that we don't want it to. Let's try and invert our map. So now the darker sections are getting applied to where the wear is. And there we go. And with our let's see, did we only add, I believe I skipped, we have the base roughness control and the wear roughness control. Oh, because I did not rename this. So let's rename this to be the proper one. So it's going to be wear roughness multi, and save that. So that could give us a little bit more control over the roughness of this area. And let's take a look how if we can extend some of this wear and how that gets applied based on our blend map. And there you go. That actually looks pretty nice. Let's see, maybe we can tweak the value of the tint a little bit. Do we want to make it darker? Sure. That looks pretty good. Let's also adjust the roughness of it. So we have the rough for that. There we go. That turned it a little bit rougher. Maybe we can go that way a little bit more. Yeah, so there we go. We have it working out pretty good. The other thing that you can you can also customize some of some of the edgeware material to have, considering that you want to keep the base normal in check. The one thing that that you can do is you can add like a custom rotator to this, so you can like adjust the UVs of your base color, maybe a tiling, so you can tile it more or less if this base color is maybe a 512 by 512 texture. That could you can also save some texture memory by using a low resolution base color that you can tile up. And so you can improve on this material. Right now, it's like I said, it's pretty basic. I just wanted to highlight the use of a blend map and how to get that out of Mixer. But again, this material you can extend on it quite a bit. So so yeah, that's all I wanted to share with you today. Trying to keep this tutorial a little bit shorter, and just a couple of ways of how you can retexture a Quixel asset. Well, thank you everybody for watching this. Hopefully it was helpful, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.